Hello, 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 and welcome everybody to a special edition of Anchor Watch. I am currently on travel somewhere in the great United States, but I did not want to miss out on the past week's events, and our executive producer Sam is being very generous to step in and chat with me as we start going through two major things. We're going to depart a little bit from, our serialized American civics and everything, because I just think the two things that are happening, one international and one domestic, are so big that we need to do kind of a deep dive into what's happened here in the last, 72 to 120 hours. Sam, how you doing?
Bobby, it's a pleasure to be on. I'm honored to be asked, and really excited to get going on this topic.
No. So here are the two major things that we need to talk about. Let's start with international. The international thing, we're going to talk about what happened in Alaska with President Trump and President Putin. And then nationally, we're going to talk about what's going on in Washington, D.C. And the reason we're talking about both of these things is because they're damn near unprecedented, both of them. They break a lot of historic norms that the United States has kept in place for decades. And I think the ramifications of both events will resonate for quite a long time in both in the United States and abroad. And we'll get to both of them. So let's start there with the international development. So we had the summit, right, that took place in Alaska, the Air Force base up there right outside of Anchorage. And from the beginning, this seemed to be off. So first of all, it's 7 hours from DC to Alaska one way, and then about the same, a little bit more back. But we're talking about 14 hours of transit for a total of 3 hours now, a 3-hour summit. What would you think, Sam, if you heard that you traveled 14 hours just to meet for 3 hours? Would you think that makes sense? Normal?
Well, first of all, I mean, you're also, he's flying over international territory, right? He's flying over Canada to get there. So it's
Yes.
that I mean, you're the expert on that. I would
Right.
assume there are other considerations to take in that when a world leader flies over your airspace.
Yes.
But the second thing is, it is absurd to me. Something clearly went wrong, and I don't know what it
Yes.
is, but the first thing that went wrong in my mind is that Putin was there at all. How is that
Yes.
even possible, Bobby, that we allowed Putin on our soil?
So when you add to it that the countries that are actually at war only had one country show up, the other, Ukraine, was not there, makes this even more bizarre to me. Okay.
Right.
So here you have Putin, who decides to come to Alaska. And there was literally, and I saw the footage of this, American soldiers, like American servicemen, rolling out the red carpet for Putin to walk out. We gave him red carpet treatment, which,
And
okay, everybody's like, that's not a big deal, but it is.
He's a butcher. He's a
Yes.
murderer, a kidnapper.
Yes. A dictator who was kidnapped, slaughtered, murdered, political enemies, people who breathe wrong, you name it. You name the minority group, he has actually had them killed. And we scrambled to have a red carpet rolled out for him. And for those, again, who think this is not a big deal, when you're dealing with the top level of diplomatic relations, all the symbology matters, all of it, from having service people that they parade and review, depending on where they are, to parades. All of it speaks to a certain level of respect that goes to the customs and traditions of really ancient military.
Sure.
Okay. So to have a red carpet laid out on an American Air Force base with the biggest near peer competitor of the United States, historically our biggest rival since becoming a world power, should make everybody pause. That's the first thing. The second thing is, make no mistake, the schedule was cut short. They were supposed to have a 3-course lunch, abruptly canceled. Okay. Originally, this was supposed to be a one-on-one meeting, which, if you remember what happened in Helsinki in 2018, They had a one-on-one meeting with the translator, and the translator's notes were taken, and the translator was not allowed to speak about what happened, which is a violation of federal law. Most people don't realize this, but everything that transpires with the president, especially in a diplomatic circle, is supposed to be recorded. Recorded.
Well, because it belongs to us. Essentially.
Exactly. It belongs to the American people, the correspondence. The president of the United States is speaking on behalf of the people of the United States. So even if we were talking about military allies and it's all classified type stuff, guess what? They still record it. They keep it in a classified library, which is part of the official record for the United States. We did not do that in Helsinki. So all of a sudden, it went from one-on-one to three-on-three. Adult supervision entered the room, Marco Rubio, and I want to say, what was the other? Well, all of a sudden sitting with Trump. Now, I don't care what anybody says. I honestly believe we're watching a man whose mental faculties are starting to fade, okay?
Yes.
He has to have handlers around him just in case he says something that brings jeopardy to the country. And as crazy as all the things that are happening are, don't think for a second that Secretary Rubio does not realize this is on his watch. He is the chief diplomat of the United States. He is the one history will record and hold responsible. Okay?
Yeah.
3 hours. And then when we start to hear, okay, so what was accomplished? Not a damn thing.
Well, nothing they'd like to let us know about anyway.
Right. Exactly. So it's not a coincidence. On the way back, it starts to come out that Zelensky, was furious about this thing from the time they said they were going to have it.
Of course.
And the White House is now like, okay, we've got to scramble to cover for this. So then they announced, I think even before he landed, that there would be a summit with Zelensky in DC. But this time, Zelensky, remembering his last time to visit to the Oval Office, he pulled a Wyatt Earp in the movie Tombstone. You tell him I'm coming and I'm bringing hell with me, right?
You're right.
He brought basically all of Europe's big-time leaders in a show of solidarity because the rumors were that Trump had said, hey, give up the Donbass region for peace. Now, if you're Ukraine, a country that was minding its own business, and all of a sudden you were violently, surprisingly invaded, why should you give up anything? And now I know there are people out there where might makes right. Okay, but here's the thing. All of Europe is sitting there saying, no, this is wrong. Europe has not been this unified on any topic like this since World War II. And even now, Germany, the people they were united against, is on board with this too. Merz was here. Macron was here. The leader of the EU, she was here. All these people were here at the White House, on this Monday to sit there and say, this is not going to happen. And when Zelensky shows up, this time he's wearing a suit.
Right.
The ridiculousness of the American media, specifically Fox News and OAN and that whole conservative wing that gets front page access now.
Yep.
The first thing out of Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend's mouth is, hey, you wore a suit.
Oh my God. Like
I'm trying to understand what the hell does that have to do with anything? And then the poster child for nepotism, Peter Doocy, Steve Doocy's freaking clone, it looks like, sits there and says to Zelensky, how many more people are you willing to send to their death in order to keep the Donbass region and keep this war going, basically? And I give Zelensky a lot of credit because he not only answered him calmly, but he raised the point. He goes, even when we weren't in Donbass or fighting for Donbass, we were getting bombed every day. If I didn't send anybody, we're still dying because they're bombing us every day.
Yeah.
Whether it's over Donbass, whether it's over Ukraine, they're bombing us every day. And so what you see there is the difference between the real leadership under horrific conditions of continuous war for 3 years, and a kid that literally was born on third base, went right into the media like his dad, being a complete jerk, and has doubled down on being a jerk, right? And I for the life of me, the fact that Fox News still uses the term news and they have access into, think about this for a second. They
Yeah,
right now have the greatest access to a man who is dealing with the most captivating conflict in the world, with the exception of Gaza. Okay.
sure.
And being allowed to spew this nonsense where you don't have just Trump as a world leader and Zelensky, you had like five other, I mean, this is a time for serious people, and he's asking stupid questions like that. But I digress. Here's the deal. What was gained on Friday's summit? Nothing. What was gained in today's or Monday's summit? Not much either. And the reason I say not much is because nothing was really said by Trump that wasn't said on the way back Friday. Hey, basically, NATO-like protections for Ukraine if they give up Donbass. And he goes and calls Putin and tells him. Now, let me remind people about Ukraine. When the Soviet Union fell apart, the Ukraine had the overwhelming majority of the nuclear weapons for the Soviet Union.
Right.
And in order to secure not just world peace in their minds, but to secure a very smooth transition from Soviet Union to Russia and all the surrounding countries now, they voluntarily gave up their nuclear weapons. They gave away their nuclear
Right.
deterrent, the same deterrent that Iran is fighting to establish, the same deterrent that North Korea fought so hard to get, because they know if you have nukes, no one invades you. No one invades you. And they gave them up because the world said, we will protect you from Russia.
Exactly.
We said that.
Well, so let me ask you this. This is that is the old world order. And by old, I mean 7 months ago.
Yes.
So I have so many questions for you on this.
Yes.
We established a pretty complicated system of trust among European nations and
Yes.
Western allies
Yes.
for protection and economics.
The
and
liberal international order post World War II is what it's called.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was so good. I mean, it had its flaws, right?
Right.
But it was built on mutual trust and respect, and the ability and the America's integrity.
Yes.
So
it was on the foundation of us. Yes.
Right. We said we would do what we said we were going to do. And if you played along, generally you were in favor and so on and so forth. I mean, it's wildly more complicated than that, which I've learned by watching you these past few weeks. But
Right.
What happens next? I mean, you've talked a little bit about Europe uniting. But Bobby,
Yes.
you're right now, you are at the top. It's your decision on how to rebuild the world order. What are you doing?
Well, the first thing I have to do is to rebuild NATO. And what I mean by that is I have to reassume the leadership role of it, right? So the strategic planning that funnels into NATO, that leads to the deployments you see of military all over the world, not just America's, but everybody's, is built on the full faith and trust that the United States will be there to support all the member states and vice versa. Again, let me remind people, Article 5 is the collective self-defense article of the NATO Charter, where if one country is attacked, all of them are attacked. That's what it is. It's only been activated once, and that was after 9/11, and it was activated on behalf of the United States. The other countries have not done it. So that's significant. We're the only ones that have activated it. So when Trump sits there and says we pay too much, look, we owe them in a lot of respects. That being said, the reason Putin has been hell bent on getting Ukraine is because Ukraine is not a NATO member, and
Right.
he wants a buffer between NATO forces and Russia. That is the argument. In reality, it's more than that. Putin wants to reestablish the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
When you look at
See,
the
I
places
just
that
saw, what was it, Lavrov's T-shirt?
yeah, yeah,
CCCP.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's what he wants. I mean, think about, he
Transparent.
invaded Georgia. He's invaded Ukraine. You know, his closest ally is Belarus. I mean, this is strategic thinking. He believes that he is supposed to be the man that reestablishes the Soviet Union. He sees himself as a czar 2.0,
Right.
and has now amended the Constitution to do that in Russia. The only check to that is NATO. And understand, we as a collective alliance over the last 30, 40 years have continuously fortified our weapons capability right around Russia. This is because of his actions of moving into Georgia, his actions into going into Crimea and Ukraine. So what do? We have missiles all around him. He knows it. He, in his mind, is justified to invade, to create, like Hitler called it, more living space for him. Okay.
Right.
However, there would have been no need for NATO to expand. There would have been no need for Finland and Sweden and Norway and all those countries to now that have joined here in the last 3 years directly because of his actions. There would have never been any need. He never would have, if he never invaded Georgia in the 2010s.
Yep.
Right. So he has brought this on, and the reaction from Europe and most of the United States has been unacceptable. Unacceptable. At the same time, he has deepened his ties with Iran and China. He already had it with North Korea, but those two in particular, because of two reasons, in my humble opinion. Number one, he sees them obviously as enemies of the United States, or at
Sure.
least in China's case, rivals. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yep.
But the resource capabilities, Iran with their oil, Iran with their ports in the Middle East. See, that's key. That's
Of
significant.
course.
Him being able to have Russian ships pull into China-controlled ports, very key. He needs to re-expand and reestablish a large blue water navy that can deal with the United States in the Pacific and, if need be, other places. Part of a strategic overview. Economically, we have isolated this country off and on significantly for 40 years, 50
Sure.
years. So what is he doing? He has BRICS. You know, I don't know if people know what the BRICS alliance is, but you're talking about Brazil, Russia, India, China. I mean, Saudi Arabia. This is a significant counter to the EU and the
Yep.
trade that the United States had with the EU before Trump went in and blew it up. And so this is what I'm trying to tell you. Trump blew up our trade deals with the EU as a collective, which was significantly powerful and kept Putin in check economically. He blew it up. He has tried to destroy NATO, the power that kept Russia in check militarily. He blew it up. Okay. And now we're dealing with diplomatic might, not economic, not military, but diplomatic. And every time Trump tries to declare something, Putin's like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. He can be mad as hell as he wants on the White House lawn, but when he is with Putin, he heals. He heals like a well-trained animal.
It is bananas to me. And so a couple of things. I want to shift a little bit in the same direction, but kind of a different vantage point. But first, the idea that we would be sitting, like, first of all, we have Russia surrounded by missiles. We
Right.
have the mightiest navy the Earth has ever known. There's not a
No.
fishing vessel that can sail without the the approval of the United States, right? We can blast anyone, and that
Yeah.
is that, and naval power is still meaningful, right? You need to
Yes.
control the seas. We're sitting atop this massive, power structure that is dominating for him. And however, Putin walks into Alaska, he gets in the presidential limousine.
Yep.
Nobody's been in that presidential limousine practically. He tells Trump what he wants, and he says, "I'm not staying for lunch,"
and
he
off.
leaves. And by all reports, everyone, were all ashen. Karen Levitt and all the jokers around Trump.
Yep.
It was like they had no idea what had just happened to them, because Putin is a lunatic, but he's also a serious man.
Very.
Who knows what he's doing? So
he punked him on purpose in person,
on his own land,
on his own soil, and then, and then to save face is when Trump was like, "Let's get Zelensky here," and then Zelensky to check Trump additionally, because he remembered what happened last time. He brought Europe with him. So let's recap where we are Monday evening after what just happened in the White House. Trump meets Putin face to face. All the talk that he had on the White House lawn, by the time he got to Alaska, it just went away.
Yep.
Putin shows up, has the red carpet rolled out for him, rides in the beast, proceeds to get out and tell him, "I want all of Donbass, I want this, and I want that." And then gets back on his plane and flies back to Moscow. 3 hours, 14 hours of transit, 3 hours, 0 results. We fly back all the way back to Washington, D.C. Trump is waiting on Zelensky today, welcomes him. Oh, and here's Macron, and here's Merz, here's everybody else. And they're like, "Listen, understand our position." And he did not Ukraine's position, our position. Right. The European Union, NATO countries who are like, you don't give him anything, because they have the institutional memory to remember what happened when Chamberlain did the same thing in 1930s.
Yeah, of course.
Right? And Hitler was like, "Thanks," and just rolled roughshod through Europe. They know there are people who are still alive that know that. And Trump, because he's such a student of history, probably has no idea who Chamberlain even was and what happened. So we are now at a crossroads where Trump is now saying, again, to save face, his people are telling him, "You've got to do something." We're now going to have a tri-summit by the end of August. Now, let me be very clear. When you plan a summit at that level, when done right, it takes weeks.
I mean, it is August 19th.
They got 10 days.
It is the end of August now.
Right. 10 days to put together not a bilateral summit, but a trilateral summit, which means you have to understand what Ukraine is saying, you have to understand what Russia is saying, and then you as the United States not only have to figure out a way to appease both sides, but also Europe's position on this, hell, the United States' position on this. And the thing that also blows my mind, Putin did not agree to a ceasefire. Now, for those who may not be aware, when we're dealing with diplomatic relations and war, typically to negotiate in good faith, you have a ceasefire.
Right.
Okay. While Trump was in Alaska, all of this was happening, and Ukraine was getting bombed, and Zelensky is yelling at the world. He's supposed to be talking to Trump about peace, and we're getting bombed. How can I take this seriously?
It is, the ceasefire is, like you said, it's a good faith effort, but it also is meant, and again, I know this because of you, or at least have a sense of this. When two sides call ceasefires, because neither of them actually want to be fighting. Right. So if you can create even a very tenuous peace, the idea or the reasoning or the logic is that neither side wants that tenuous piece to fracture, but they're willing to make it fracture if it doesn't go their way. In this case, Putin doesn't want peace, and that's what he's signaling. He doesn't want to stop bombing, and he won't, and it's not in his best interest. I mean, if we were strategists for Russia, perhaps it is in our best interest to stop bombing Ukraine, but he's not getting what he wants by stopping.
It's interesting you say that, because part of the issue too. When they're because they asked Trump about that today. You know, what about a ceasefire? He's like, I don't think that's necessary. It doesn't really do any good. I'm sitting there thinking, again, a man who doesn't know history. Let me ask you a question: have they ever had a signed armistice to end the Korean War? No.
No.
The answer is no. It's a ceasefire.
Yeah.
That's what's been in place since what, 1953? That's what's happened. A ceasefire. No resolution to the conflict, no peace treaty signed. It's a permanent ceasefire that is held for decades. So don't
Hopefully
talk
permanent.
to me. Yeah. But my point is, don't say that a ceasefire is not important, because people aren't dying. Yes, we have a demilitarized zone in Korea. We'll probably have one on the border of Russia and Ukraine, but people aren't dying en masse because of a war, right? So the power of this is significant, right? Of having a ceasefire so people can negotiate in good faith.
Well, and think about this too. The DMZ, you know, I mean, I don't want to make this parallel. I think it's overwrought. However, DMZ as being one of the most actually militarized and dangerous places on earth, right?
Yes.
And the stick for North Korea, the reasons North Korea isn't rushing over that border is because they know they'll be obliterated instantly.
Yes.
And that's where NATO comes in, right? With Russia and Ukraine. There is no such force and no such promise or guarantee by the United States. So let me ask you this. You know, I asked you, you're putting together the world order, you're putting it back together. Now you're not an American. Now you are European.
Yes.
Given where we are in the United States at this current moment, what are you doing?
I know this is going to sound bad because I know better, but if I'm Europe, I am careful that I don't walk down the same path that they walked before World War One.
Right.
See, by having the United States as kind of the big brother that led the strategic alliance, it forced all of those European countries to get on the same page, because the United States, when NATO was formed, was also simultaneously rebuilding Europe, right? The Marshall Plan was in effect. They were much more apt to listen because they had been bombed out and depleted. That being said, now that Europe is back and is the economic superpower outside the United States, the factions, the alliances that came into play at the beginning of the 20th century are now starting to come back into play here at the beginning of the 21st century, because they're like, we need to arm ourselves. We can no longer rely on the United States. So if you look at the weapons that have been purchased in the last 5-6 years, you look at countries like Japan trying to rework their constitution or finding outs where they can arm themselves and no longer just be a defense force.
Yep.
All of the world is arming itself just like it did before the Great War, World War One, because there is no central figure to guide the world and the order, both economically and militarily, since Trump has come into office. This is the result. It's every country for themselves. They'll form new alliances that are like-minded. And then what happens is, in a period of 10 years, my country and our country, your country, we both don't like that country, so we'll be friends and form an alliance, right?
Right.
That's what happens. So when I'll give you a perfect example. If you look at, say, France and Germany, they're in lockstep, right? But does that mean they'll be in lockstep with, I don't know, Croatia and Macedonia and Italy and those countries? We don't know. The immigration crisis that they're dealing with, where people are on rafts trying to cross over in Africa into the Iberian Peninsula, has caused a lot of rift on what is humanity and the human rights vice. We don't want these people here. Okay, well, this country said it's cool, this country doesn't. And because the EU shares all of their borders, you see migration patterns that amplify, and it's pissing each country off. Okay, more destabilization. All of these little micro things that people aren't following factors into how a spark event can turn into a fire.
The
That's the
Archduke
problem.
being assassinated.
Exactly. Sarajevo, no one even knew what that country was. And the next thing you know, literally 40 million people are dead. Dead. Yeah. So we're repeating the same mistakes because the United States, who created that liberal international order after World War II, is now abandoning it because we have chosen for the first time since World War II to become proactive isolationists under the guise of being a protectionist state. That's how it's being passed off. We're looking out for America first. No, you're isolating yourself.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And the world order that we have created was built on alliances on purpose to help detract from individual nations acting and causing conflict. That's the other part of the alliance, to talk people off the ledge. Well, when we are no longer in the diplomatic space, Steve Witkoff is the special envoy to Russia and the Middle East. The man has no diplomatic training. He's a real estate mogul.
He's not taking notes in meetings.
No.
I mean, all of this.
This is why people need to be concerned. This is not, okay, I'm not just running around like, yeah, political propaganda. No, we have the evidence of people who are not qualified to be in positions, acting emotionally with no training, and shit hits the fan. And so in 2025, when you compare the cabinet and most importantly, the foreign policy team of Donald John Trump, and compare it to even his first term, when you compare it to previous presidents, you see zero subject matter expertise. You see ideologues who are loyal to protect him, right? And you have messaging that at best is high school level, at worst is deceitful and devious. And this is where we are. Case in point. They leave behind documents on how the United States was going to handle Russia in a printer, in a hotel
printer.
This is so JV. This is so junior varsity, people. Okay.
I mean,
and they have to lay out stuff in detail for these people because they don't understand what each movement means, what each ceremony means, what each speech means. And there's one last thing I want to bring up about this summit, too, that I think about it, Sam.
Yep.
Never before, when the United States has hosted a world leader, was the first person to talk the visitor.
No.
Never.
Mm-mm.
They call a press conference, and Putin speaks first after going down a red carpet laid out by American servicemen.
Being applauded by our president.
Exactly. And then he speaks like it's his press conference on American damn soil. I said, I'll be damned.
And then he gets up and leaves. It's like your wife's ex-husband coming over for Thanksgiving and giving the toast and sitting at the head of the table. And then before he eats, getting out. It is wild.
And then to transition to the other story here, in the Oval Office today, you have Zelensky, you have Europe's leaders. Now, let's be honest, Europe's most powerful leaders there with Zelensky.
Yep.
And this man starts talking about not allowing mail-in ballots for the next election. Talks about, the fact that the only way Democrats can win elections is through the mail-in ballot, to get rid of the machines that we have, go straight paper with watermarks. Right. He's talking about domestic issues, while, by the way, other National Guard units from red states have volunteered themselves to go to Washington, D.C. Those states are West Virginia, South Carolina, and Ohio. Now, let me just take a moment to remind people of what the hell has happened to West Virginia in the last year. All the natural disasters, rivers overflowing, forest issues, serious devastation, and FEMA showing up late. Their National Guard needs to keep their butt right there in West Virginia. because there's plenty of work for them to do there. Meanwhile, that go back to that visual real quick. The crisis of DC with a 30-year low in crime, the crisis of the arrests being made over the last few nights have been mostly traffic violations, unpaid parking tickets, a couple of warrants that needed to be served. And I got friends that live in DC proper, and they're just like, these people just walking around. The rules of engagement that is being used for the active duty military that have been sent has been weak at best. Weak at best. So I've seen a copy. I'm just like, they are there to provide intimidation ambiance. That's what I'm calling it. Intimidation ambiance. Now, here's what's interesting. There are certain segments of the federal government, the agents that are there, not the military, but agents that are actually training the DC police to be more effective at their job. And it's appreciated. The mayor even said it. But you can do that by holding joint training. Not an actual order, the homes that whatever that thing is that allows 30-day thing. You could have done that anyway. You chose not to. Now you're going to go to Congress when they get back in session and ask for an extension. Okay, all of this, to include the summit in Alaska, is simply because of two major things. Number one, the Epstein files. It ain't going away. It's not. And on top of that Epstein file, when Congress comes back in session, we have bipartisan agreement to subpoena everything. Bipartisan. If you would have told me that Hakeem Jeffries from New York and Marjorie Taylor Greene from my home state of Georgia would be on the same page on anything, I would have said, you're out of your damn mind. But here we are. And here's the thing. She's caught hell from MAGA, but not from Republicans, because now we're starting to see where those battle lines are being drawn. She's going after Laura Loomer. And if you want to entertain yourself, go online and get that synopsis. It is comedy. It is an episode of Mean Girls 2.0.
I mean, holy shit. It's amazing.
It's bad.
It is bad. Crazy.
But here's the thing. And I'm from Georgia, and I know a lot of people who do like her and what. This, well, yeah, because my district is literally right next. Well, she does. And here's the thing. On this subject, the MAGA crowd, most of them are like, hey, we can talk all this stuff about adults. We're talking about kids. They want to see justice done if it's about kids. And you know what? Good for them. I agree. But we all know, we have now heard leaks from people who've seen it. Trump's names, it's all over the documents. So since this became a thing, again, and let's remember, this all came flooding back. We've seen the occupation of DC. We've seen Ghislaine Maxwell transferred. We've seen the summit that happened. We've seen Trump talk to other countries like Pakistan and India, trying to jump in and show internationally that he's relevant. He is trying. I mean, the MLK files being released. The mail-in thing, the gerrymandering in Texas, which has now spurred California to do what they're about to do. All of this upheaval, all of it internationally and domestically, is because of one thing. He does not want those files out because he knows he's guilty as hell. He knows it.
And here's a guy who has almost no shame for anything. He goes out and talks for hours and doesn't make any sense. And yet he is ashamed about something in this thing, or he's afraid of getting in trouble, or he's afraid, whatever it is bad. It's not, this is not a good thing that's happening to him.
It is real bad. And I think it's something that is unrecoverable. I think it is not a coincidence that Ghislaine Maxwell has been moved.
No.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that Pam Bondi and Cash Patel, those two in particular. So the head of the Justice Department and the top law enforcement agent in the United States, as unqualified as both of them are to be those positions, aren't saying a damn thing.
Yeah. Nope.
They are, I mean, they've gotten Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth to try to throw interference. They are trying everything. And what's amazing to me is I got to give the American people some credit where it's due. I've been on the American people about, hey, learn American civics, learn your Constitution. But they have been on this topic like a hobo and a ham sandwich. Every time Trump does something, you go on social media, you see someone in the comments, Epstein files. That's great. Epstein. Epstein. I mean, trolling relentlessly because they realize this. And now we're getting the videos of people in DC being harassed.
Yep.
You know, delivery boys, you know, people outside their own neighborhood, all this other kind of stuff, just on their stoop getting harassed. And even when we see that, we still have people saying Epstein. Heck, we have people who are recording the actual things happening, and they're like, we still want to see the Epstein files.
Yeah, but it's a reminder that this shit's happening. I mean, look, I think I have a theory, and I always think about unified theories, and this is for sure conspiratorial. But my theory is Trump has wanted to launch. He's wanted to command troops. That's it.
Yes,
he wants to do that. He talked about Greenland. He talked about Canada for some reason. He's talked about Mexico. He's talked about all these other places. He can't invade another country. He just can't.
No.
That would be devastating to his legacy, and everyone knows it, and it would be devastating to the world. But he can deploy troops in his own city because he's not going to have troops coming back or armed servicemen coming back in body bags. He knows that. But it serves double time. So he gets his little parade, his whole show, and he gets to distract from the real business that is humiliation for him.
He desperately wants the strong man narrative somewhere in his bio. It's obvious. Again, bombing, Iran, this and that. But here's the thing.
Right.
No one saw it. He didn't get the visuals seen around the world of him launching aircraft into war.
Well, and it didn't work exactly.
Well, that too. I mean, we hammered that, but he wants that visual of unadulterated military power marching on his orders. He's got to have it. He doesn't know what else to do, but he knows he's got to have it. And what blows my mind about this, when I really break it down, every dictator in the 20th century had the same desire. Every last one of them. You name them, from Idi Amin, Hugo Chavez. I could go down the list. And it's like, wow, he is really made in that mold. We literally have a president that has to have it. Just like, and it carries over to everything else that he does. His tariff policies. We're going to give China 125% tariff. That makes no sense in any aspect. And everybody knows it, but he's got to be seen as, man, that guy is so tough. I don't know why he's like that. Well, I think I do know why. I think this goes back to his issues with his own father, to be completely honest. But the American public is suffering because of it. But now, take it a step further, the world is the instability economically, the instability diplomatically, the loss of face internationally, and then the strongman tactics domestically have led to the most unstable presidency, in my opinion, easily since Herbert Hoover, and maybe of all time.
I don't think that's an exaggeration. I mean, if you think about, most authoritarians have a lot in common, and one thing that generally they have in common is a very ripe economic system or other political turmoil that's happening in their country at the time that provides them with an opportunity. Trump created the political turmoil.
Yes.
He inherited. We're the richest country that's ever existed.
Yep.
And it's not enough. Peace, lasting peace, and economic strength is not enough for Donald Trump.
Right. Right. He has the ultimate savior complex. So he has to create the crisis in order to save it. He has done this with the economy. He has done this with Putin in the past. He's done this with, the military. I mean, it's like, yeah, let me create this crisis of a crime wave in DC and I'm going to solve it. And then when he pulls the troops back, he's like, look how low crime is. It was low before you did it. 30%. It's a 30-year low. It was low before you did it. Right. And so now when you take all of that, what we've seen the first 7 months, he is now transitioning into full-fledged preservation mode. That means Epstein files cannot be seen because he's guilty. He knows it. He's basically admitted it in his own interviews. And then how does he keep Congress? How does he keep the House of Representatives? Because he knows if he loses the House, not only will his last 2 years be turmoil, he will be constantly fighting every goddamn committee, subpoenaing every goddamn thing that he has done. And we will see the duplicity and the illegality of what he has caused.
Yeah.
Which may have him be impeached. And here's the thing about being impeached, of course, for a third time. Just hypothetically, let's say that happens. Let's say they get the Senate by one vote to impeach him, first president ever.
Sure.
He is then subject to all sorts of legal issues that, and I know the Supreme Court was like, hey, yeah, he gets immunity as president. I didn't say as president. I said legal issues. So him not paying Jean Carroll, he gonna pay now. All the litigation that has been put on the back burner because he's the chief executive and they gave him that privilege goes away immediately. Old and new. People from Atlantic City, if it's within the statute of limitations, can go after him. He's at the curtain of his act. Politically.
That's an amazing way to put it.
I mean, this is it. And the question is, how is he going to go out? How will he spend the last years of his life? He may have 10, 20 years left. I don't know. Jimmy Carter lived to be 100, right?
Yeah.
He could. But how will it play out? Will he be a broken man because he has no economic viability due to being an impeached president 3 times over? Will people want to invest with him when they realize he has no political value whatsoever? Which is, I think, is going to happen regardless. I think when Trump's term is done, he's done as far as being able to get business.
You think he's
selling stuff on? Oh yeah, that's why he's hawking everything. That's why he's doing crypto stuff. That's why he's allowing the crypto people to come into your 401ks.
I mean, that is crazy. That is a whole other hour that we could talk about.
That is wild. But when you look at everything that he is doing is in the preservation of him, his lifestyle, his image. It has nothing to do with helping the American public. From the one big, beautiful bill to 401ks basically being gambled upon by crypto bros.
Yeah, put it on a horse.
To the tariffs. Yes. Yeah, yes. To the tariffs that are killing small businesses. We had Dr. Charles Ballard here tell you that's exactly what's happening, and it's starting to happen. There has been nothing that this man has done since coming into office that has made America stronger, better, or more unified. Let me say that again. Nothing he has done has made America stronger, better, or more unified. Nothing. So,
Nothing.
All of these people who want to sit there and say he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, show me factually. Show me. The first thing they're going to say is, well, he's locked down the border. I go, but he's also illegally locked up American citizens. Which, if one American citizen is locked up with no due process just because they look a certain way or sound a certain way, then God dang it, I don't care who comes over the border. That's wrong.
Yeah. Because it could be anyone. And it doesn't even matter if it can be anyone. It's them. It shouldn't happen to them.
Exactly. And so these people who are like, well, they think because of the way they look that it won't be them. But when it's you as a farmer and you're protesting the fact that you did not get your promised government aid that keeps your farm afloat, and you want to complain about it, and they come down hard on you with that same National Guard that you
Yeah.
wanted in DC, then you'll want to do something about it
Yeah,
and
you
expect
can't
everybody to
complain.
rally around you.
No, I think, it's interesting. They say, folks like Elon Musk, for example,
Right?
billionaire, richest man on earth, has almost an insatiable capacity for risk, right?
Yes.
He is totally happy with risk, and I think Trump has become actually willed himself into becoming a billionaire.
Yep.
And the difference here is that Musk, by and large, with the exception of shareholders and employees and the people who depend on his companies for their livelihood, he's risking his personal wealth. Trump is fine with risk, but he's putting all of us at risk for his
Yep.
own benefit.
Exactly.
That's what we need to continue to hammer on. He is
I agree.
risking your life for his wealth.
He literally looks at the office of the presidency as an asset to his personal well-being.
Yes.
And the reason why this is disturbing is because I think he is literally the first person to be in that position that thought that way. We've had presidents that have done things that were wrong. We've had
Sure.
presidents whose policies, debilitated America. But in their mind, at that moment in time, they believed they were doing the right thing for America. And I'm talking about people who were straight up white supremacists, people who committed genocide against the native population. They all thought though it was in the best interest of the United States, no matter how
Yeah,
jacked
right.
up it is. This is the first guy who has come into the White House and said, "This is mine, this is for me, and I'm going to use it for me." To the point where, if you notice, his older children receded into the background this term. They're not, advising like they did. They have receded. You know why? Because they're preparing for what happens when he is out of the White House. They see it, especially Ivanka. She knows.
Yeah,
It's
she
not a
knows it.
coincidence. It's not a coincidence.
Man,
Jared and Ivanka, they know. They know. So
that's
this is where we are, America. We have someone who does not put the rest of us first.
no, I that's a amazing point, and I actually have never thought of it that way. That you can have really, really bad ideas,
Yep.
but your impulse, your instinct is that they are good for the nation. Clearly, that's not his impulse. That is not how he's seeing
Not at
any.
all. Not at all. He
Uh,
looks at the White House as something that's supposed to amplify him, his present position, and even his legacy. He'll sit down. I don't care. He cares. He cares. If he didn't care, he wouldn't have his name slapped up on buildings that he don't even own, that he
yeah,
rents out. So he's aware of that. The thing is, though, I think he's completely underestimating what happens when this thing goes sideways. And I think we're coming to a
right.
point where something is going to happen where it goes completely sideways. And my hope and prayer is that the country, and by proximity, the rest of the world, will be able to handle it.
Yeah,
Because I just don't see how this ends with, we just go back to normal after Trump. I think this is going to be a fireball.
yeah. Well, so before you let me go, I want to ask, what do we need to be looking at this week, and like what from all, take all of this stuff and
Yeah,
give me a
a couple
couple
of
of things
things.
we should keep our eye on.
A couple of things. One, let's see when they schedule this tri-summit
Right.
and where. I cannot emphasize how important where this thing takes place is. If you look historically at summits of serious import, those locations, Tehran during World War II, Iceland in the 80s between Reagan and Gorbachev, these places are picked for specific reasons, to present neutrality, to present positive feels going in. You know, originally the next summit was supposed to be again between Putin and Trump in Moscow. There's no way in hell that's happening. with Zelensky. There's no way.
No.
But at the same time, you can't have it in any of the former Soviet states. You can't necessarily have it in the EU. I can't see Putin saying, I'll go to London
Right.
or Paris. So the question is where, right?
Yeah, where?
Then watch how the markets react, right? And when I say watch how the markets react, will the economic base of the world sit there and look at this as a positive and markets stabilize and maybe see some increase? Or do they think it's fool's gold and it goes down? And depending on that, right, how does the Trump administration react to the rest of the tariffs that they said are now in place? Do they renege on some of that? Do they continue to push forward with these things? Because what we've seen with Trump is there's never a time where both economics and international and domestic policies are balanced and equal, and there's no conflict. There's no chaos. One is up here, one is down here. When will we see an equilibrium where you turn on the news and they're like, hey, in economic news, the market's doing well. Diplomatic news, the ceasefire in Ukraine is holding, and Gaza has seen negotiations and good. When are we going to get to that point where there's a semblance of normalcy? Because we haven't seen it in forever, right? Our new normal is chaos.
That's right.
Brought on, self-inflicted by one person. You can literally not go visit Washington, D.C. without seeing the results of this. You cannot fly abroad, depending on where you fly. Heck, certain countries can't even fly in here. People have forgot about the travel bans.
Yeah.
There's this consistent chaos around this man, so he can sit there and say, I alone can fix it. But the problem is he's not fixing anything.
He broke it. I mean,
right.
You create a shit problem, and then you make it just a little bit worse than it was when you started, and then you fixed it. Like, that's his whole game. These tariffs, he's at something around 18% across the board on average on tariffs. That's up from something like 2%.
Yep.
I mean, and this is just in time for, major retailers are starting to run out of their stocks.
Yep. As they go into the new fiscal year. Yes. The timing could not be worse. And think about this. We're really going to feel the effects of this right in time for the holiday shopping season. That's when it's really going to dig in. And that's when people are really going to see the difference in these prices. They're going to be like, what the heck? This costs how much?
Yeah.
And spending during the number one time to shop will be degraded. At the same time, Trump has been calling for the resignation of the freaking chairman of the Fed, and he wants interest rates reduced, which will cause inflation, which will make it worse. We again had Dr. Ballard on.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that will cause panic.
It will cause a panic. And so the federal chairman, Jerome Powell, is doing what he can to stabilize a market that has been artificially slapped around by a president that has the same damn foreign economic policy of William McKinley.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oy.
So that's where we are. That's where we
right.
are as a country. And, I wish I could be more positive, but, I guess the most positive thing I can say is, football season is about to start. Enjoy.
Amen.
That's all I got. But, yeah, we got some work to do. And the other thing that people need to watch, the last thing I'll leave you with is watch what happens in Texas and watch what happens in California.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal. If they do it in Texas and California responds, and we just keep it there, because if we go into a gerrymandering war around the country over the next year as we go into midterms, the faith in the electoral system that has already been eroded, Trump's trying to erode it further with mail-in ballot issues. What we know is the American democratic process may cease to exist by this time next year. No one has faith in it.
I mean, this whole house of cards is built on faith. The economy,
exactly. Everything that is uniquely American is built on the faith of America believing in it. The economy, democracy, our military, you name it, it is built on full faith and confidence that we will do what we're supposed to do as Americans. And for the first time in damn over 150 years, that faith is not there.
It's not there.
It's not. So,
well, Bobby, I'm so glad to have you on Lincoln Square.
thanks for having me.
And I am just absolutely delighted that you asked me to be on today. Probably didn't provide much commentary, but I could talk to you about this shit for hours and hours. So
you did great. I mean, we're just having a discussion. You know, sometimes you just need to have a discussion and talk about these things.
I agree.
And hopefully everybody who's listening, you know, send us questions, and we're going to try to answer them, because right now there are no dumb questions. There really aren't. There really aren't.
Bobby, before we let everyone go, I'd love to at some point schedule you in the chat. Lincoln Square has a chat, and I know it's pretty active. And I would love to get you in there, because I bet people would love to share your.
Well, let's do it, because I'd love to answer some questions real time, so we can spark some real good discussions and hopefully be able to help people understand more what's going on, give them some context.
Yep, absolutely. Well, tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, I'm on Substack at Navshad, so Nabshad. You write me, I answer directly. So, you know, please hit me up, and I'll post random things on there, thoughts. But yeah, please, I'm here to answer questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Bobby. I really appreciate you having me.
No, thanks, Sam. Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah. See y'all next week.
Mm-hmm.